There's a common trope in the computer world about Linux users that they have an elitist attitude, and they think that they're better than everyone else who doesn't use some sort of Linux distro. Now, to determine whether or not somebody is an elitist or not, I think that there's some criteria that we need to look at. How does this potential elitist view themselves? How does this potential elitist view others? How does the elitist compare themselves in relationship to others? And then, is there any merit to the elitist view? Is there any logic behind it, or is it just an ego-driven emotion to tell themselves that they're better than other people? So I'm going to answer these questions for myself, because I am, of course, an avid Linux user that's been accused of being an elitist. So how do I view myself? Am I actually better with computers and technology than most people? Yes. Yes, I am. It's pretty obvious to me if I look back on my life. I first used a desktop PC when I was 4 years old. I learned how to type pretty much by teaching myself when I was 10 years old. I installed Ubuntu all by myself when I was 12 years old, just so that I could get slightly higher frame rates in RuneScape on my crappy laptop that came with Windows Vista. And almost every job that I've had since becoming an adult has been technology related. So asking me if I'm better with technology than the average person is kind of like asking a professional basketball player if he's better at shooting three-pointers than most people. Of course he is. A professional that does something for a living is going to be better at that thing than an average person. So how do I view other people? This is where you guys might become a little bit surprised, because I actually don't think that other people out there are significantly stupider or lower IQ than I am. I don't really get the sense that I'm a genius living amongst morons, although sometimes it does seem like that, but there's much more evidence to the contrary. I can look at something like historic IQ data and how it shows that IQs of almost every population have been increasing over time. I can look at things like literacy becoming more and more common, complex mathematics, or at least people's ability to do complex mathematics becoming more and more common. The fact that everybody has a smartphone and has access to pretty much all of the technology in the world at their fingertips. All of these things don't really lead me to believe that everybody is just a dummy or low IQ. So what is it about other people that makes them not so elite? Well, if I had to make an educated guess, I would say that it's apathy. Apathy is much more common now than it ever has been, and really it's a production of our society. Life has just become so easy for the common person that they can't really be bothered to care about anything. There's so many easy sources of dopamine, tons of porn out there on the internet. There's Netflix, Hulu, all types of different things to just keep your brain preoccupied and on a steady dopamine drip so that you're not going to go out and pursue anything that's really difficult. And the thing about humans and animals alike is that once their basic needs are met, they have some type of shelter, fresh water to drink, and food that's in their bellies, they start to lose that drive for survival and the extension of survival, which is achieving greatness. You see, once you reach a certain point in your life where you're comfortable, a person's drive for greatness becomes diminished. And without some deeper meaning or goal to fuel you, you'll essentially fall into apathy like so many other people have. I think this is also why so many people say that Linux is difficult. The installation process really isn't any more complicated than how Windows was before OEM machines. But since we now live in the age of OEM machines where Cortana pretty much just sets up Windows for you once you power on the laptop that you bought at Best Buy, well, yeah, I guess Linux is a little bit more difficult in comparison to that. So, how do I view myself in comparison to others? Am I more elite with respect to my OS choice? Well, yes, of course I am. I actually know what's running on my system and why. A Windows or a Mac user, they simply can't say the same. and I actually have control over my system, beyond just the theme that I'm using or the color of my mouse cursor. A Windows and Mac user cannot say the same. And I actually know more about my system. I mean, even if you compared me to a Windows Power user, I probably know more about Linux than that Windows Power user does know about Windows. So yeah, obviously I'm much more elite than they are. I mean, imagine if cars were like this. You go to the dealership, and there's two different cars that are fairly equal in terms of performance. And yeah, I know, the performance of Linux tends to be better than Windows and the Mac OS. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, though, and pretend like they're actually on par in terms of performance. So you've got these two cars. But one is going to constantly record your conversations and your music preference and send that data back to the dealership. Also, you can never pop the hood of that car, you can never change the rims on it, you can't rewire new speakers in it or do anything that's a little bit more advanced. All you can do is just go and get a new car. Who in their right mind would buy a car like that? Obviously, it's the type of person that instead of tackling a problem or instead of learning how to do a DIY project and then going there and doing it themselves, it's the type of person that would rather just shrug their shoulder and let somebody else deal with it. So yeah, I guess I am an elitist Linux user because I run an elite OS. I put in the work, I put in the hours of research, and most importantly, I took action by actually installing, configuring, and using this OS. Not everybody has the same skill set. Some people's stats are going to be far superior to others, and not everybody is the same, regardless of how much the talking heads on TV might try to tell you otherwise. This idea that everybody and everything is equal, it's complete nonsense that we tell school children. The reality is that some people are better at some things and possibly even an array of things than other people. But the beautiful thing about elitism is that so many more people could be joining the club. Linux really doesn't have this crazy high IQ threshold where you have to be a genius to get started with it. The real key to Linux is effort, not IQ. And if you're willing to put forth the effort, you could leave your normie dystopia of Windows or the Mac OS and join the beautiful world of Linux elitism. You just have to flash an ISO to your USB drive, boot from it, and survive the road to Linux elitism.